Welcome to the world of TACTIC, a UKRI-funded clinical trial assigned urgent public health status by the Department of Health and Social Care, looking to enrol patients hospitalised with coronavirus infection deemed to be at high risk of progression to organ failure or death. The TACTIC trial is a platform trial that has been designed by a team of investigators from the University of Cambridge and Addenbrooke's Hospital, together with investigators at King's College London, King's College Hospital and Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital in close collaboration with their respective biomedical research centres. My name is Andrew Cope. I'm a rheumatologist, T-cell biologist and a co-investigator on the TACTIC study. And joining me today to discuss COVID-19 is Dr. James Galloway, a rheumatologist, epidemiologist and statistician from the Centre for Rheumatic Diseases at King's College London. In this clip, we provide some background to the TACTIC study, its design and what we are trying to achieve.
The COVID-19 pandemic has, I think, taken the entire global community very much by surprise. If we look, this was a disease that was unheard of 3 months ago, 4 months ago. We've seen in the UK enormous numbers of cases coming up, initially particularly in large cities, and in early to mid-March we saw London having very high numbers of cases. The burden of disease has shifted around the UK over the last months with actually a very obvious impact of social distancing and stay-at-home recommendations, such that cases have now reduced in number, which is fantastic. However, I think the community and the scientific community believe quite clearly that the virus is still out there, and we are likely to see a resurgence, hopefully at a much lower level, of cases over the coming weeks. And that's why TACTIC is so important, is we still have questions to answer.
And our understanding of the distinct stages of disease?
So, for the vast majority of people who have COVID-19, it is a monophasic illness. They have a viral illness which is characterised by fever, muscle pain, cough, breathlessness, that lasts a relatively short period, usually a week or so, and then recovers without problem. But a minority go on to develop a more severe disease with a severe inflammatory lung disease, often with other organ involvement. And that is the life-threatening disease we're so worried about. It looks like the virus, there appear to be 3 distinct stages to the disease. That first stage, which is the, if you like, simple viral illness. A second stage, which is then a transition period, at which point the body's immune response starts to kick in and starts to make an aberrant immune response. Towards a third stage of the disease, characterised by requiring intensive care support with respiratory failure.
So what treatments do we have available right now?
So the mainstay of treatment currently is supportive care, about appropriate hydration, appropriate oxygen management, ventilation in people who develop respiratory failure. Currently there are no licensed drugs specific to treating COVID-19.
What, in your opinion, are the robust approaches to address this problem in a trial setting?
So we definitely need clinical trials to establish if drugs are effective. And those trials need to be comparing an intervention to the standard of care. The challenge with these clinical trials is traditionally we will study one drug versus the standard of care at a time. And for many diseases that's acceptable. But in this public health emergency, where we really are less certain about which drugs are most likely to be a winner and to work, we want to test multiple drugs. And we want to do that as efficiently as possible, without exposing enormous numbers of patients to the standard of care arms. One trial design that is particularly amenable to this situation is the platform design. This is a study which incorporates multiple interventions in parallel with a single standard of care arm. Crucially, platform designs can also use an adaptive approach to how we analyse the results, using what are called Bayesian models, where as the trial progresses, we do interim analyses to look whether certain arms are doing well or doing badly and should be withdrawn.
Trials, we know historically, have taken months, sometimes even a year or so to set up. How has the trial landscape changed in recent months?
Yeah, so If you'd asked me a few months ago, did I think I'd be doing a trial in COVID now, the answer was no. It's come at a speed in terms of setup that has been unprecedented. I promised I wouldn't use that word. We've gone from an idea and a clinical trial concept to having a first patient dosed in an MHRA approved study within barely 8 weeks, which has been phenomenal. And the reality is, I think we are very privileged in the UK. Our NIHR support from the outset has been crucial to it. It's the CRN networks that have allowed us to engage so widely across the trials community in the UK. The biomedical research centres, the infrastructure we have in the UK has put us in a very unique position to be able to deliver trials like this at scale and in such an astonishingly short space of time. One of the other things, of course, that it's linked up with us is the networks to also not just design the study, but the drugs that go in it. And I wonder if I could come to you on that.
So James, in the absence of really robust evidence about disease pathogenesis, we've taken a fairly rigorous approach to trying to identify licensed drugs that we think are biologically plausible. And to do this, we have convened an expert panel of rheumatologists, immunologists, chest physicians, infectious disease specialists, and renal physicians to scrutinize the literature, to look at experimental data, to look at preclinical models, to get a feel for the pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics, because we're really keen to introduce drugs here that will establish a pharmacological level in patients fairly quickly. And then we're looking for drugs that are licensed that give us some feel of the safety profile. This is of paramount importance. And drugs that will be scalable. So if we see a signal, these are drugs that we could roll out in the future. There are other platform studies that have been set up around the UK, so we're particularly keen to avoid duplication and really to try and offer the community a portfolio of complementary drugs that we can test in the trial setting.
So tell us what drugs we're going with and talk through what tactic is currently including.
So the first phase of drug selection is targeting 2 specific pathways. We have some concerns around the uncertainty of highly selective targeting of inflammatory mediators. And so for this reason, we've chosen a Janus kinase inhibitor, baricitinib, developed by Incyte and Eli Lilly. And this drug has advantages in the sense that it uncouples signals transduced by multiple cytokines. So we get an opportunity to suppress cytokines that may be produced as a response to the viral infection, but more importantly, those that are produced downstream as a consequence of immune cell activation. Baricitinib is the JAK inhibitor that we're planning to test. And it's a particular interest because there are some in vitro data that suggests that it targets kinases involved in viral entry. So not only do we get an anti-cytokine drug, but we get a drug that may have some antiviral activity. And I think in the context of the TACTIC trial, this is really important. The second drug is ravulizumab, which targets a component of complement, C5. And complement, a little bit like cytokine cascades, has multiple downstream effects: cell activation, cell death, recruiting leukocytes into inflamed tissues, and the cell death in these tissues contributing to organ failure. And like baricitinib, which is licensed for use for rheumatoid arthritis, ravulizumab has been licensed for rarer conditions, paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria, and so it has a safety experience that we are comfortable with. Both baricitinib and ravulizumab, in fact, have been tested in the setting of compassionate use in open-label studies, small numbers. So we have some degree of confidence that these drugs are safe, and there may be signals which we hope to expand on in a larger clinical trial.